What is going on, everyone? Philly Insider Podcast here. I'm Hunter Doyle here with Sanjay George. And today we're here on Bird Gang Nation Sports Media. So make sure you guys check out Bird Gang 31 and all the stuff all these content creators are doing. And yeah, we're just going to be on here on our, usual weekly Thursday live talking about, we didn't talk about Sanjay. We didn't talk to Sanjay about the game last week. So we talk a little bit about that, potential playoff matchups, reflecting on the season a little bit. We're going to get it all in there. So first off, Sanjay, how are you feeling after we won that game on Sunday, which was honestly a nail biter? It was one of those ones where your heart's pounding the whole time. So how are you feeling and what were your big takeaways?
I'll keep this short because we got a lot we want to cover in this live, just things we want to get to. So I'll keep this short just to give my take real fast. One, Gannon's defense was inexcusable. Guys came out flat-footed. A lot of it does go towards his scheme. Once again, the soft zone needs some variation. That only works if you have a little bit of a question mark as to what they're going to actually do. And he was just too flat in terms of play calling. Guys on defense, the personnel, missing open field tackles, giving up easy routes, not getting enough depth. All the mistakes were there for the first half. They buckled down a bit in the second half, but man, it was close. Even people want to forget now. That final drive, they were on our 25, 30-yard line, before that interception. That game was still very much in the air at that point. Thank goodness for a McLeod interception, or else who knows where that's ending. So, the defense needs to be talked about. That was terrible. And outside of that, the offense, I got to give this to Jalen. Jalen had his second best game of the year to me in this matchup. Efficient, throwing the ball well, reading the field well, which is something which I criticize him for a lot on here. He was reading the field well. And he was just making good decisions. And, we always say it. I said it in the preseason. I bring it up repeatedly throughout the regular season. We don't need Jalen to be a top 10 QB. But if he can be a top 15 QB, that gives us a real shot. And Jalen was, I'd argue, a top 12 QB. He was playing like it on at least this past Sunday. So, very good for Jalen. I'm a big critic of Jalen. So when he does good, I also got to be fair. I got to give him his flowers. I'm giving him his flowers for his performance. And one more thing, which I feel may go understated, which has to be said. Jordan Howard is not the same, man. He is so banged up right now. You could see it. You could just see it. When did this season prior, did you see Jordan Howard go down for a loss? Stuffed at the line of scrimmage. No gain. It was bad to see. I don't know how much health he can get back between now and this playoff matchup, but that's something that needs to be considered because if he isn't 100% and he plays like that, putting him out there might do more bad than good. And that's really all I have to say from the game. Now, obviously, we come to playoff times. Speaking of, before we get to that, though, Hunter, I know you had some things you wanted to do still in regards to the regular season.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to say, too, if McLeod doesn't pick that off, a better throw, McLeod might not even be able to get there, too. Or if Anthony Harris doesn't undercut that route, not a PI, by the way, then that's also, McLeod's going to have to try to make a play on the ball rather than – on Bates, rather than having to, sit back and see that interception was going to sail over his head. So, if we really caught a break there, and you're not going to catch those breaks in the playoffs. So it's, they got to tighten it up a little bit. They've got, next week, they got a whole week to prepare for it. So, and hopefully the COVID cases will be all activated by then. So, yeah. But in terms of regular season, I think first let's talk about the game this upcoming Saturday with very little at stake for both teams. There was stuff floating around there that Mike McCarthy was going to play the starters. Now today, Micah Parsons, they said he's not going to travel. I think Anthony Brown's not going to travel. They got some guys on the COVID list, which makes me think those guys might play. The starters who are going to be there will play like a drive or two. That's probably going to be all. They're probably not going to show anything to us, probably just to keep them in rhythm, right? So what are your thoughts on, both teams, obviously – it's not like we're both locked into our seeds, but we both clinched our respective spots. They've clinched a division. We have clinched a wild card spot, either the 6 or 7 seed. We obviously have the 6 seed to play for. By the way, guys, we don't even have to win for the 6 seed. So that's just something I thought I would put out there. Talk about that. Cowboys, they could move as far up to 2 or 3 or 4. They could end up at any one of those spots. So obviously there's seeding at stake, but you really don't want to risk injury playing for seeding. So what are your thoughts on some of the guys playing this weekend, what the Eagles are going to do, what the Cowboys are going to do, and what we're going to kind of see, and also the decision to flex it to a Saturday night game?
So for the Saturday night game, I think the NFL just knows. They were like, there's not much on the line here. That just that made sense to me. I was like, this is unfortunate, but I get it. Like, there's not much on the line here, like you said. For the Cowboys, McCarthy is a moron, but even he wouldn't possibly be dumb enough to play all of his starters in a situation like this for more than a quarter. And more likely, I think it's going to end up being what you said, where it'll just be a drive or two just to make sure guys, aren't completely cold. You don't want to just go a whole 2 weeks without playing football. You want to make sure guys got at least some reps in, so their body still remember, muscle memory is still there, all that good stuff. And then on the other hand, you go to us. I mean, the COVID cases have kind of come through, Omicron be wilding lately, so it's everywhere right now. Honestly, on the low, this is, if you think about it, it's better that we're getting it now, because the issue is now that we have it, hopefully most of our players will have antibodies for the playoffs. So that is in a way low-key blessing in disguise. But point being anyway, it's kind of like the last nail in the coffin of should I start them, should I not? With the COVID concerns, just let the starters sit. It's not worth it. Don't send somebody we need out there to get injured on a meaningless game, pretty much, like you said. The difference of the 6th and the 7th seed isn't going to mean a thing to us. I can tell you that much. Between the 2nd to 4th seed, there's not a whole lot of difference.
Yeah,
so
we're just talking about matchups at this point.
We are pretty much. So with that being said, I just think mostly everybody's going to sit. And you raised an interesting point before we started this, in that one guy who's interesting as to whether or not we'll sit is Minshew, because he is our backup quarterback. And you would expect as such, if we're sitting Jalen for the week, that he would be the next one in to get snaps. Now, there's definite positives to that. Obviously, it gives him a bit more, rhythm if we do need him at some point. You never know. You never know who's going to have to come up in a playoff game. We saw Josh McCown have to do it the last time we were in the playoffs. You never know when the backup's going to have to come in.
And that's why we drafted Jalen, essentially, too.
Point being, you never know when your backup's going to need a little bit of practice. So those reps are valuable. Additionally, the big rumor around the organization right now and around the fan base is that Minshew is going to be traded this offseason. And if we're trying to move him, it never hurts to have a few nice throws on film to just, up the draft price a little bit. You feel me? Up the price, get a few more picks, maybe go up a few rounds in terms of picks, all that good stuff. So all that's helpful, but there is also a bit of a negative. I'm going to let you get to that, because I think I have some of it figured out, but you didn't explain all of it out to me, and I want to make sure you get your whole piece in on this.
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously you put Minshew out there. For one, like you said with COVID, you're risking him getting COVID for one. And if, let's say, Jalen gets COVID the next week too, I mean, we're starting Reed Sinnett in a playoff game. Can't do that. So I'd rather start Greg Ward at that point. But, we haven't seen much of Reed Sinnett. So, he had a good preseason. Give him this credit. But that's a concern for one. Two, Minshew gets hurt this week. Let's say he gets hurt in the game. And then let's say Jalen Hurts gets hurt in the playoff game. And we go into that game with Sinnett as the backup. Then you're really in a tough spot in the middle of the game. You're not even back to Josh McCown, because, look, I'll give Josh McCown his credit. He got us down to the red zone. He just couldn't convert in the red zone. We got field goals every time. That's still better than probably what Reed Sinnett will give us. And again, we have to see Reed Sinnett, but there's a reason he's the third string, and there's a reason he was picked up mid-season too. Not to mention also, let's say Minshew gets a serious injury, and then you can't trade him in the offseason. Another problem, because he could definitely land us some real capital that you could even, let's say he lands us a 3rd round pick, you could package a 1st and a 3rd to maybe get a better pick next year too. Or you could package a 1st and a 3rd to move up in the 1st round this year. Or the possibilities are endless. Like that extra 3rd round pick will, could do wonders for us if that's what Minshew is going to land. And I have to think with some of the quarterbacks that have started games this year, obviously with COVID still running wild, there's going to be quite a market for Minshew, because he's obviously still a starting level quarterback in the NFL. So those are kind of my big negatives. You got to watch and you got to be careful. I don't mind him playing. I think it'd be good for him to get the experience, but I don't want him out there too long. If we're playing some of the backups on the offensive line and he's starting to get smacked around out there, put Reed Sinnett in right away. Or even if it gets to that point, I mean, if Reed Sinnett's getting smacked around too, you might even put Greg Ward in for a little bit. So, that actually won't happen. But, there are some negatives to starting Minshew. I think he will start the game, but I think you got to be careful with it. So, it's one of those rare situations where he's pretty valuable to the team. Like, it's not exactly like when the Packers would throw Matt Flynn out there when Aaron Rodgers would sit the last week of the season. Like, Minshew's definitely got some value, and he's been a starter before. And, we really made out well. If you think about it, if we do end up trading him for a third, we're essentially trading a 6 for a third-round pick. That's essentially what Howie did. He turned a 6th-round pick into a third with Minshew. So, I also want to talk about, with the season, we've kind of, obviously, a lot of the season is pretty much wrapped up. The regular season is pretty much wrapped up. I want to talk about 3 surprises and 3 disappointments you had from this season. So first, I want to start with 3 surprises, and I think one of them is one we've talked about for a while, but I'll leave it up to you to decide which ones. And there's been plenty of surprises, but what are like 3 of the big surprises you had this year?
3 big surprises off the top of my head. One big one, or at least a surprise to me, was the regression of Alex Singleton. I'd made a pretty bold take at like the start of the season saying that he could possibly perform up to like a Pro Bowl linebacker if he really, really improved. That was like my burning hot take just based off potential he showed the previous year. And I was surprised at like the regression that happened. Like I couldn't really see that coming. Like even in terms of what he was good at, like the run game stoppage, being able to read holes, get to his gap, he couldn't really do any of that this year. The only real impact he's had on defense has been coming as a blitzer. Like he really hasn't done much else. He makes like 1 play a game in pass coverage, but that's about it. And for my concerns about starting Minshew, I mean, they're mostly mirrored to his. So like they're pretty much exactly the same, Drew. I don't really have a whole
Don't worry, I wasn't
that.
skipping over him, Drew.
Yeah. But let me see. Outside of that, Singleton's regression was one. I was just surprised because, sometimes you don't expect a guy to get better, but like I didn't expect him to get worse, which is what has happened this year. He is worse than he was the previous year. Another surprise I have to say is, and this is a pleasant surprise, I am pleasantly surprised by Landon Dickerson. He has overperformed what I thought he would be in this first year. Solid starter. He has shown the versatility we drafted him for. He has stayed on the field healthy, knock on wood. Like, I am pleasantly surprised by Landon Dickerson. It was a kind of throw up there. It made sense pick at the time, but now it's become a very solid pick, and I'm very happy with it. And finally, this just has to be said. I'm a bit
Wait, save the not so pleasant surprises for the disappointment section.
Oh, okay. You're right. You're right.
So you still need 2 more, Sanj. I can. Yeah, I can do one. We can go back and forth. I can do one. You can do one.
Yeah, you go right now. Let me think.
Okay. My first surprise, I think, and this is like people are gonna laugh at this one, but actually, no, you won't laugh at the actual statement. Was J-Jaw making the roster in the first place? And that's kind of like a 53-man roster, like release type of surprise. But I say that because the way they've used him is actually like, it's not exactly how I envisioned him being used this year. I thought he would still like play in the slot a little bit more and run a little more routes, but the way he's contributed has been a bigger surprise. It's been more than he's contributed in years past, but I also gotta give him credit. Like Michael Clay has talked about him in his like press conferences, the special teams coordinator. And he talks about how J-Jaw comes in and he's kind of like a leader in the special teams group. He's like, let's go watch the film. Like, let's see what we did wrong this week on punt coverage, kick return coverage, like stuff like that. Like he's doing well blocking up punts. He's been very close to, he had like 3 or 4 near block punts too. And he's, running out there on kickoffs, making tackles, closing up lanes. And even like in our offense, he's been used as a wing tight end. Like he's really not a wide receiver anymore. He's a blocker. And I mean, on the one Boston Scott touchdown in the Giants game, like he blocked it up and he was the lead blocker on that play. Like people underestimate a lot of times when he's out there, like he is the lead blocker for our running backs and wide receivers on screens, on run plays and stuff. And on the Lane Johnson touchdown, what they did was they had J-Jaw in, so that signified to the defense it was a run play. they motioned J-Jaw over and made it look like the previous touchdown. And then Lane Johnson snuck out because he was eligible. You know, a lot of times, like, him being used there can be used as a disguise now. And I think that's what, that's more value than a lot of teams will get out of their fifth wide receiver. Like, you hope for them to be a special teamer, but his usage as a blocker has been a lot more crucial to this offense than I think most people understand. So credit to him. Again, he'll never be a second-round pick, but, if you told me this guy was like an undrafted free agent and he came in here and was like a fifth-round, or, if he was our fifth wide receiver, he would be totally fine. And that's kind of what I evaluate him as now. I can't evaluate him as a second-round pick. It's just not fair anymore. Again, if he was a fourth-round pick even, I think his role right now I'd be somewhat okay with. I'd probably expect a little bit more, but, he only has 27 routes run the whole year. That's a little more than one per game. Like, it's not really a big thing, but, I think that his ability to even make this roster and I think this is his last year. No, he's got one more. So yeah, I got to give him some credit. So
I got you. I did get my second surprise too. I didn't think about it. I
got
to go.
You got a couple disappointments, so there's that for you.
I do. Okay, there's a lot of disappointments. I don't think I'll have to think as hard for those. But a nice little surprise, which we definitely had, which I got to say, Avonte Maddox, man. For a hot minute, we were all worried Avonte Maddox was going to end up being the odd man out on the roster. Like, seriously, he just couldn't seem to find his rhythm on the outside. When it came to, like, having to play that style, he just couldn't do it. Like, he just didn't quite have the speed to stick with guys. He just wasn't as good up against the boundary line. But once we moved him into the slot, man, not only has he performed well, he has been making plays, key breakups in key situations. And in the NFL right now today, where every team has a slot receiver who can go off almost, you have to have that guy who can just take that position and just lock it down. And we have that in Maddox. Even got the extension for him. I am so happy to see the improvement he has shown. It was surprising because I was one of the guys who was worried about it. I was worried, does he really have the skills to translate to this? He's had flashes before, but I was like, can he do this consistently? And I love my consistency, man. He has been the definition of a consistently good slot corner, nickel back, whatever you want to say. He's been doing it well this year. I'm pleasantly surprised by the boy Avonte Maddox.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to think of my second surprise. I don't just want to go with the video I did the other day because most of the people in here saw the video. So I don't just want to copy that. I'll say this. I think Boston Scott's, the fact that he's still been involved in the offense was, well, first off, Maddox has been awesome, just to credit you. Boston Scott's continued involvement in the offense, he always finds a way. I think a big thing is, running backs are always going to get hurt. And that's something I underestimated, was that Boston Scott's still going to play even if he's the RB3. And, whenever he's been on the field, outside of the one fumble, which was, again, a sick twist of fate this year, but outside of that play, he has been, such a good pass catcher, such a good route runner. He always finds the lane and he just bursts through. He has great acceleration too. Like, he's always there when you need him. Boston Scott always comes through in crunch time. Like this past week, prime example, when we were struggling and we were on 4th and goal twice, we were on 4th and goal twice. He came through with the touchdowns, and one of them was a Superman dive. Like, he cut it to the outside. You thought he was going to score, and they cut off the lane.
I did not think he had that one.
Yeah. Like, those little things he does, like, I did not expect this, especially with Kenny being in here. And I thought Carry-On was that'll be one of my disappointments. Carry-On. I won't do that now since I just mentioned it, but Carry-On, I thought he was going to play a little bit, but he obviously got hurt in preseason. And that was kind of, everyone was like, well, he's just going to get hurt every year now. Boston Scott, man, I got to give him a lot of credit. Look, I love Boston Scott. I just, last year I thought he was okay when Miles was out, but I didn't think he was anything crazy. But this year he's solidified to me that he is probably one of the best depth running backs in the NFL you could ask for, and one of the best change of pace running backs on our roster, which I didn't think he would be on one of the best change of pace guys on our roster. But to me, Boston Scott has solidified his spot on this team for years to come, unless he gets a better opportunity somewhere else, which honestly, I think this role is what he is best fit for in the NFL. I think he is best fit to play this kind of change of pace, pass catcher / running back kind of role, where he comes in, every once in a while. He's a good replacement when you have injuries. I think he's going to be – I think I would love to see him I'm going to say it. I love to see him spend his career as an Eagle in that RB2, RB3 role, but someone else could definitely offer him a higher pay. So we'll see how that works out. But he has definitely been a surprise to me. So
I got you. My last surprise, man. It might not be a surprise to you because you've been on this one for a little bit, but for most of the fan base and for me especially, it has been the best to see Dallas Goedert grow into his talent. For a long time, we've seen the potential be there, but there was just the question of could he? There were just simple mistakes he would sometimes make in blocking, pass catching, where he just have the focus drops, and those still come from time to time. But he has taken such a big step this year, just in terms of yards after catch, being that consistent option, just always holding himself open, putting the extra hustle in for extra yards, getting to the first down. He has just come a long way after he traded Zach Ertz and it became official he would be number one tight end all by himself. I was a bit worried as to whether or not he could take the whole deal by himself. Could he really be that guy? And he showed not only can he be that guy, he's shown the talent of a possible top 5 tight end in the league. Like that cannot be understated. That cannot be overstated enough. That was just, at least for people like me and most of the fan base, that was a huge jump he's made this year. I'm very excited to see his career going forward with us. And yeah, that's my last surprise. I figured I wouldn't be taking one from you either because you, like I said, you've been on this for a while with that he had this type of talent. And it's nice to see him finally live up to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he almost had a 1,000-yard season. If he didn't miss that Buccaneers game, which I'm glad he did because Ertz got his last touchdown as an Eagle, and it probably wouldn't have happened if Goddard played. But if he didn't miss that game, and if they actually targeted him in both of the Giants games, he might have hit 1,000. But I already did the video on Jordan Howard and TJ Edwards the other day, so I'm not going to steal one of those and just cop out with that. So I think a big one, he's not playing right now, but while he was playing, I thought he was really impressive. Davion Taylor, I think the progression he made this year from last year, I was like, this dude's a phenomenal special teamer, but I'm not sure if he's going to be more than that. This year gave me confidence that he might be, you might be able to go into next year with TJ and Davion as your linebackers. And I know that'll upset some people because I'm not saying you don't go into the draft and look for one. If there's a guy there, I think you absolutely take him, especially if it's best player available. But I think if you go into the season with those guys and you let them grow and flourish, you might have 2 guys there who could possibly lock down the middle of the field. And I think Davion, I think TJ's helped him a lot, especially. I heard TJ's mic'd up. He was talking a lot to Davion. But I think Davion, he's athletic. And we always said if he could get the instincts and, get the football IQ a little amped up, he would be a phenomenal player. And I think you're starting to see that a little bit. He's making strides. And next year will be year 3 for him. So that's going to be a big deal. So honestly, I'm going to say I won't be surprised if Howie doesn't invest in the linebacker position again in the draft, just because you have 2 guys growing there. But I think they should. I think they should look to it, but, don't force it at the same time because you do have 2 guys who have shown they can play. So I was very pleased with that. So now time to get on to 3 disappointments, which is a little bit of the rougher side of this thing. I'm going to steal the easy one first, which has got to be the Eagles' 3rd wide receiver, Jalen Reagor, who, look, I understand that this might not be a surprise to many people or much of a big disappointment because a lot of people gave up on him on last year, but you have to understand the man put up around 340 yards and didn't play half the games last year. Was it Justin Jefferson-esque? No. And that's why people were ticked off, and I can't blame you. But if you look at like his per game stats last year, it was definitely something to build off of. And I was like, okay, this dude can be like a 700, 800 yard guy a year, possibly, at least like a wide receiver 2 slot guy, or like a Z, like he could definitely be that. No, after this year, I think the wide receiver 3 spot, we talked about it in the chat earlier today. We were looking at free agents. We're looking at the draft. Yeah, he can't be the wide receiver 3 next year. It has to be Smith, Quez, and someone else. It has to be those 2 guys, and you have to get a replacement for Reagor at this point. I have no doubt Howie will keep him around. That's my opinion because Howie's going to Howie, and he's probably not going to give up on him, just like he didn't give up on J-Jaw. So I think Reagor will be here next year. But yeah, I was really disappointed because I thought Reagor was at least going to be a productive wide receiver. I did not envision him being like a 200-yard guy this year. I also thought he would do a little better on punt returns too, because I think he showed flashes last year when he caught the ball, but he runs backwards a lot of the time. Granted, lately it's been a little bit better, like he's improved upon it, but it's still been, it's been bad, and it's not helped his case with the fans. And I don't like. You can tell he's worried about what the fans are saying too. Like that's something that's definitely in his head. So I think Rager is someone who I'm ready for him to see the offseason. So he has made some more catches down the stretch, but it's not even been close to what I expected. I'm not even expecting him to be J. Jeff, like I said, or any of those receivers that were taken around that same range. I'm expecting him to be
Yeah, do you cut out a little bit there? So I'm guessing it's my turn though until I go. And bro, one big disappointment, which I had such high hopes for this player, just in terms of they had like a good how should I put this, reputation coming onto our team, which I really haven't seen too much from is. And now maybe I'm wrong. Maybe film will like look back at this and prove me wrong. But I just expected a bit more of an impact from Anthony Harris. Like, when we signed him, I thought that was it. That's really going to anchor down the secondary. And he's made a few plays here and there. And, I don't hear his name called a whole lot. So that's a good thing. Any defensive back, you don't hear their name called a whole lot. That's usually a good thing. But he just hasn't quite made the impact that I hoped that he would. And now maybe that was just me being a bit too hopeful on my part. But I'm looking back at this season, and when I look at Anthony Harris's play, I just feel kind of underwhelmed. Like, maybe it's not a huge disappointment, but I feel like it should still be said. I just expected a bit more.
Yeah, no, that's definitely fair. I can't blame you for that. I think I was really high on Anthony Harris. I was very disappointed in him this year. I thought he played better towards the end of the year, and I guess I should have seen it coming. Like last year was kind of the foreshadowing to it. I thought he was going to be like that elite, like go back to what he was in like 2019. I shouldn't say elite, but I thought he was going to be really, really good. So, that's definitely one that I think you hit the nail on the head on. That was definitely disappointing. So, yeah, for me, I don't know. There's not too many guys that I'm looking at in terms of disappointments, just because like Steven Nelson, I wouldn't call it disappointment because he played serviceable enough. Disappointments, I would say, I hate to say Gannon because he's also had a decent back half, and I know opponents factor into that. So I don't want to say him either. Honestly, man, this is tough. This is really tough, man. I don't know if there's
We're going to throw a few people under the bus. This could very well come back to hurt.
Yeah. Okay. I got an easy one now. So for number 2, I think I did my first one, right? Did I do my first one?
No, this is your first one.
This is my first one. Oh, dang. I still got to come up with 2 more. First one. So I got my first one. Derek Barnett, definitely. that was, I can't believe it took me that long to think of it. But, look, I think he was the team leader in penalties. Wouldn't be surprised if he was the league leader in penalties. And in so many crucial moments, too. Sirianni hasn't even been here for more than a year, and you see him on the sidelines and he goes, it's always him. They shouldn't know that coming into the year. That is such a bad sign if you're known for that, 6-7 weeks into the season. And it was always him. In the Chargers game, we had a chance to stop them and make it a longer field goal and possibly get the ball back, and he jumps off sides and makes it a 3rd and 1 or a 4th and 1. Really, dude? So that was a big thing. Also, just his lack of production. I know he got some pressures on the quarterback, but he hasn't played at a 13th overall pick level. And that's safe to say. I think that's where he was picked. But, he hasn't played at that level, and I don't think he is ever going to. I think he's a good 3rd defensive end on any team, but I think that's it. I don't think he's much more. Maybe a fringe 2 on a team that needs a defensive end, but he is disappointing me this year. I thought he was going to have, especially it's his contract year. I really thought he was going to play a lot harder knowing that he needs to get paid next year. So, yeah.
All right. My second disappointment, man. And this, I don't know if this can go right on the player himself, but it has to be said. What happened to Gainwell, man? What happened? He was getting so much work in the first 4, 5, 6 weeks of the season. Gone. Disappeared. he goes out there for maybe like one play every like 6-7 snaps. Like what happened, man? Like where did he go? I don't know if I can say that goes on him, but
Yeah, it definitely doesn't go on him.
I'm very disappointed in the usage of Gainwell. I feel like that's the right way to put it. Like, I just feel like we mishandled what could have been a very good weapon for us. And like that could have been valuable developmental work too. We talked about this as being a year for developing the young guys. Well, you got a young running back who could really be something in the future, and he's just riding the pine for most of the time. Like, I am very disappointed in the usage of Kenny Gainwell. I really feel like that was just, I don't know who made the decision for that, but what led to that? Maybe there's some context I don't know, but it'd have to be pretty extreme to justify the way we have mismanaged Gainwell.
Yeah, like Blue Green says though, he'll definitely be back next year, and I think next year he's going to get a lot of work. So I'm still encouraged by what Gainwell did this year. But my second disappointment, also while thinking of the defensive line that came to mind, I'll let you have a guess at it first. I think you know who it is now. I just saw your face.
Is it Milton Williams?
No. I actually have been pleased with what he's done the past couple of weeks, so I don't want to go on him because he's young.
I'm interested then.
It's I want you to guess it. It's like not obvious, but it's obvious at the same time, if that makes any sense.
Do you mean Fletch?
No, they're not on the interior.
What's the other tackle's name?
You'll know they're not tackles. They're defensive ends. So
defensive end.
Defensive end.
Defensive end.
Just think
you said Barnett. No way you'd call out Sweat.
No. Sweaty J's been awesome.
Go. My mind's blank.
Yeah, it's Ryan Kerrigan, man.
Oh, I forgot he was even on our team. That didn't even register.
That's why I said it's like obvious, but not obvious because he doesn't do anything. So
okay. I didn't even register that on the depth chart. In my head, I was like, Williams. Barnett, Sweat. Who else?
Nah, yeah, it's been Kerrigan, and the fact that you couldn't guess it tells you all you need to know about Kerrigan because he has absolutely disappeared this year in the NFL. So, no, look, like I said, the dude has been non-existent. He was supposed to come in here and be some semblance of a Chris Long role. I don't think. I mean, I'll be honest. I thought he was going to play that role, but I think you at least expected him to bring some over of what Chris Long did, and he hasn't done even close. Like I'm talking about like 4.5 sacks here. I'm not talking about like this guy having 8-9 sacks like he had back in the day. Or, Kerrigan's a guy who used to have like double-digit sacks every year. He doesn't look anything like he used to be at all, not even what he was last year. So, big disappointment for me. It's also been, ever since we lost Brandon Graham, that signing has been more of a disappointment to me because we needed depth. And honestly, Taron Jackson has done more the past couple weeks. Cameron Mulvo has done more the past couple weeks. Kerrigan has done nothing for this team. And that's pretty much true in the stat. You look at the box score, too.
Yep.
There, he pretty much records no stats any game. How is that possible? So I got to give it to him. He's been a huge disappointment this year.
That is a good one. That is a good one you just thought of. My last one is it's a little bit of a cop-out, but at the same time, I feel it has to be said. He's come on strong in the back half. But I am disappointed in Nick Sirianni, man. I just feel like I am. No, I got to say it. Just because here's my thing. We could be sitting so much better as a team if he just made a few simple decisions. For one, as head coach, he is responsible for bringing Gannon here, so I hold some of that on him. And then two, we had so many games early in this year, bro. I can name at least 2 or 3 off top, where if he just done a little bit of common sense thinking, we walk out with a win. And now, obviously, like I said, he's come on strong in the back half of the year. If anybody wants to defend him over that, that's more than fair. But there's still times, man, where he just gets way too cute with the play calling. He doesn't adjust to the situation. He's not really looking at the personnel he's got out there. And in those times, I just got to wonder if he's going to grow out of that. Now, obviously, it's his first year. He has plenty of time to develop, to fix all the issues I just said. But at least for this year, especially given, maybe it's my fault for hearing all the hype you built up for him coming into the season. Maybe if I'd started a bit lower, the disappointment wouldn't have been as bad. But expecting what I expected from him, and that Falcons game also didn't help because that really set me up for the fall in terms of expectations for Sirianni. But I just overall, I feel like I got let down with Sirianni. I feel like I got catfished, but they're not ugly, if that makes any sense. Like, he's not terrible. And with time, I could get more used to it, and he could fix a lot of issues. But I do feel disappointed based off just what preseason expectations were.
Dang. Well, I was not expecting that. But I will. My last one that I kind of thought about on the spot would be Jack Driscoll's health. And I think his play really impressed me. But last year, I chalked a lot. He went on IR at the end of the year, and I was like, you know what? I mean, he's not used to the wear and tear. Like, a lot of people mentioned that. Like, he's a rookie. He's going to get used to that. He got hurt again this year and put on season-ending IR, and he's done now. So, and that's a piece who I think could be one of our guys on the right side in the future. Like, whether it's right guard or right tackle. I like him at right tackle, but I think he's just as good at right guard. So I need him to stay healthy because I think Driscoll really held it down while he was healthy. Got to get a little bit better in the run game, but phenomenal in pass protection. So, it's definitely a concern, and it's more of a concern for him individually because as a team, we can replace him. We have Stoutland. We have Herbig's probably a little bit. I think Driscoll's a little bit better, but Herbig's, serviceable. He's a lot better than when you had Matt Pryor out there at the end of the year last year.
Jeez.
So
shout out to Matt Pryor. I'm pretty sure starting on the Colts offensive line.
Yeah, I think he's actually done well in Indianapolis. So shout out to him. But yeah, I got to say I'm a little disappointed in the fact that Driscoll couldn't stay healthy for a whole year. But yeah. Anyway, though, was there anything else we really any big things we want to hit on? I feel like I forgot something that we didn't hit on yet. Oh, yeah, playoff opponents. That's huge. That's definitely a big thing to hit on. So
we got to.
I mean, if you guys don't know, so I actually was up late a couple nights ago and just like running out scenarios. So I didn't actually look at the official scenario. I don't know if they even released official scenarios for who we play. I think everyone's just going to see what happens because there's so many endless possibilities. But I did look at each like scenario individually of how many scenarios it would take to play each team. So right now there's 3 scenarios to play the Bucs. There's 2 to play the Rams, and then there's 1 to play the Cowboys and 1 to play the Cardinals. So it could really, it could go any which way, and honestly, all of them are like somewhat likely. Like none of them are really outlandish. There's like maybe a game in a couple of them that are probably unlikely, but I wouldn't even rule it out per se. So I think we should start with the first team. I think we should start with. I think we should go from like least likely to most likely teams. So the least likely,
the Bucs, right?
What'd you say?
So we're starting with the Bucs then, right?
No, the Bucs are the most likely team we'll play. We have the
least likely to most likely. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So the Cardinals, I think, are probably the least likely, especially just looking at the scenario too. There's only one scenario, and they would also have to. They would also have to bump up and win the division too. So we beat the Cowboys, the Panthers beat the Bucs, the Niners beat the Rams, and the Cardinals beat the Seahawks. So as you can see, it's probably the least likely of them all. It's not completely out of the picture, but because who knows if the Bucs after what happened last week, you never know what could happen. So, and if guys start going, they might even want to rest their starters a little bit. But I think that one's unlikely for the sole purpose of the Panthers can't move the ball. And also, I think us beating the Cowboys is a little bit unlikely just because of how many guys we have on COVID. And I think we're definitely going to rest some guys and Reed Sinnett. I don't think we'll win that game. But I'm hoping Reed Sinnett looks better than Sudfeld. But anyway, enough talking about the scenario to get there. So if we actually played the Cardinals, what do you think about this opponent, our chances against them? And yeah, just give your thoughts.
One thing I'd be very worried about is Kyler is built to demolish Gannon's defense. I don't want to have to see that. That would be a big problem. That Cards offense, even without D-Hop, it's just so explosive, man. Like, their big play capability just scares me. Like, that's something to fear. And on the other side, I don't want to have to see Jalen try to throw against Vance Joseph's defense. That would be something that I don't like thinking about that. So no, that just seems that would be a very bad first round matchup for us. And additionally, the Cards defensive line is monstrous, man. Like, that's just not a good matchup to draw, at least. Maybe the first round will convince me otherwise, but I wouldn't want to have to see the Cards in the first round.
I'll be honest, the more I look at it, this is probably the team I least want to play. And that'll probably surprise some people, but I think it's mostly for like you said, Vance Joseph's defense. Jalen trying to set up his protection against that many guys in the box, and also the Eagles trying to scheme against that. You got to know exactly where your hot read is, and also the team has got to be able to help him out too. It's not all if Jalen struggles against that defense, even as someone who's like neutral and goes back and forth on Jalen, I would have a tough time putting that game on Jalen because a lot of it's going to come down to play calling and also game planning the whole week too. So the thing with Vance Joseph is too, he'll have so many guys at the line that it's really tough to diagnose where the pressure's coming from. But also, when he doesn't have a lot of guys at the line, he will creep guys up to the line late, right as the snap's about to be called. The good thing Jalen does is Jalen often will put his hands out and do the cadence to kind of see what's going on, and then both sides will adjust. So Jalen does do a good job of that, but he could just be running for his life in the entire game. And if the Cardinals go man coverage, great. Jalen can just roll out and take the open space that's going to be there. But if they're going to go zone and he's going to have to pick his spots and stuff, it could get a little tough. And I think the Cardinals do a really good job dialing up that pressure. And look, even the Cowboys, they had a lot of trouble with it, and they have a pretty explosive offense. Kellen Moore did not have answers. And Kellen Moore is I'd consider him, I know he's had a rough back stretch and a lot of fans are on him right now, but I consider him a very bright offensive mind. So that scares me for the reasons I mentioned, and then I didn't even talk about the offense, which, I think Cliff Kingsbury's a fraud at this point in the season, but I still think they tear apart Jonathan Gannon. So I think that game, I think best case scenario, we're in the game, honestly. I don't know if I really realistically see us winning that game with the team we have right now, with the coaching staff we have right now, until everyone's a little more experienced. So, and we get a few more bodies in there. So next we go to the Cowboys, who we play this week. Obviously there could be a little bit, if there's a chance we play each other, there's going to be a little bit of a chess match that goes on in this game. So this scenario, the Eagles lose to the Cowboys. So that's different from the last one. The Panthers beat the Buccaneers, still unlikely. That's really the backbreaker for a lot of these scenarios. The 49ers beat the Rams. That happened already. We'll see. That's possible. And then the Seahawks
especially with the way Stafford's playing right now.
Right. And then the Seahawks play the Cardinals, or beat the Cardinals too. Which, I mean, Seahawks, Cardinals, end of the year, that's always a close game. So you never know. And it's still Russell Wilson out there. So, that's not a very likely scenario, but there's still a chance we could play Dallas. And I think that's who a lot of people want to play too. What do you think about them and, us facing them a second time after getting mollywopped by them the first time, and how he would fare?
So, for one, the offense has become a lot less concerning to me. That offense, especially losing Michael Gallup to the ACL, very much caps their offensive capability. They still got explosive playmakers, Dalton Schultz at tight end, CeeDee Lamb. Cedric Wilson will fill in for Gallup just fine. Amari Cooper can still catch any number of passes any game.
Mm-hmm.
But offensively, they've just kind of taken a little bit of a step back. Their receivers are just a little bit of a step behind sometimes. Dak is making very questionable throws at some points, kind of off target. His reads are sometimes I'm wondering what he's looking at. And then to top all of that off, the defense isn't quite generating the turnovers they were early in the season. Early in the season, that Cowboys defense was getting 2-3 turnovers a game in some games. Now it's come down a lot. They've been lucky over the backstretch to get one in a game, usually, exception being the Washington game, if they were lucky. So, this Cowboys team is kind of deflated a bit since we last played them. And with that being said, I still don't want to draw them in the first round. Just because here's my main issues. For one, we don't match up especially well in terms of our offense versus their defense. Because the weakness of their defense really is the back end, being able to target corners, being able to target the safety. And Jalen just can't. If it comes down to the game comes down to Jalen's arm, I feel a lot less comfortable in that.
Yeah.
So our offense doesn't really match up well against their side there. And additionally, Micah Parsons has been on a tear. I really don't want to see him coming after our running backs.
No.
Or even in pass coverage. He's been doing it in pass coverage too, man. That's just terrifying. I really don't want to see that. Not quite as much. It's not quite as bad as the Cards matchup to me, but it's still very bad. And then defensively, I don't know. Defensively, I feel we stand much better of a chance. Because like I mentioned, the Cowboys offense has taken a few steps back over recent weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And Cannon's defense isn't great, but it kind of gives a chance for us to exploit what Dak's been having trouble with in the back half of the season, which is just making the right decisions and making accurate throws. Like, it's a very simple thing, but he's been struggling with it in this back half. And Gannon's defense is designed to exploit that. Now, whether that would actually work out, whether Dak would just rip us apart, that remains to be seen. But that's why I feel a bit better about the Cowboys matchup than I do the Cards matchup, mainly because of how our defense could possibly take care of the offense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, this is also a team I don't really want to see, mostly for the fact that I just don't really want to deal with the Cowboys fans come playoff week because I'm going to be honest, I think they would beat us. And I hate to be that guy. I know we're all going to go into the game hype, but if they do beat us, I mean, that's, obviously last week doesn't matter, but, it's a pride thing. And I'd rather them get taken down by someone else in round one than draw us. And look, I'm going to be honest, I think we couldn't make it out of the first round, but I just don't. To me, it's really mostly the bragging rights deal of it. It's not even the matchup. That's the part of it, because it's just, I don't want to put myself in a situation where I think I'm going to be bragging, convince myself the whole week that I'm going to, be on top. And then I have to deal with all these Cowboys fans at college, mind you, too. If we lose to them, I do not want to draw them. I really don't. I really hope we don't. So, yeah, for the reasons you mentioned, Micah Parsons can do everything. He's going to be all over the place, and there's a good chance that he, chaos ensues because of something he does, and Jalen Hurts kind of the wheels fall off a little bit. So, like you said, I also don't really worry about our run game. I think even though they have a good defense, I think Stoutland knows how to game plan against that, and I literally think we can take down any run defense in the NFL. That's just where I'm at. But you can't run the ball every play. So, I think our defense, yeah, I agree. Honestly, I think it's a pride thing with Gannon too. Like, I think after getting absolutely smoked, like they ran the score up on his defense last time. And I think after getting absolutely smoked, Gannon's going to want some revenge. And I think Gannon's going to want to, hopefully, those sunglasses give him some extra powers. And, he goes, I hate the sunglasses.
Not the shades.
Yeah. I do think he would really I think it'd be a thing where, obviously you want every matchup, you want him to go out there and have that extra push. But I think sometimes there's just those games where it's I got to do this actually, prepare a little bit more. And obviously, like I said, that should be the case every time. But I honestly think that he'll have a little bit of extra fire to him if we play the Cowboys. So and honestly, our defense, how many times has our defense been able to go and take it back to the end zone when they've gotten turnovers? They have put an emphasis on, guys, if we get the ball, we are going to take it back to the other end zone. And I think credit to Slay. He's been a big part of that. Nick Rallis, the linebackers coach, he's been a big proponent of look to punch the ball out every single time. And obviously, you would hope every coach does that, but it's a lot easier said than done. And if you keep putting that in the linebackers' minds, they're going to do it. And look, they have. TJ Edwards has punched a couple fumbles out this year. Davion did at one point. Alex, he was due for his yearly pick 6. He's been playing a little bit better. He will pluck the ball out of the air, and he has the athleticism to take it back. You get the ball. And honestly, you can lateral to Alex, too. This defense will lateral if they need to. So if this defense is able to get a turnover against this team and put a touchdown up on the board, I think we win the game against them. But I think other than that, I think it's going to be a tough draw. So I think we'll go on to the two teams that you and me would probably rather face than the two teams. Honestly, surprisingly, would probably rather face than the two teams we just discussed. Probably a certain order, but both of them are considered top dogs, but also have their issues right now. So I think first we're going from least likely to most likely. So the Rams, there's two scenarios that we play them in. The first one being we lose to the Cowboys, the Rams beat the 49ers, and the Falcons beat the Saints. Pretty likely scenario, right? There's a good chance that could happen. Other scenario, we beat the Cowboys, Panthers beat the Bucks, 49ers beat the Rams, and Seahawks beat the Cardinals. So, I think that's the same scenario in which we would play. We'd play the Cardinals, except the Seahawks would beat the Cardinals. So it's that one where we need the Panthers to beat the Bucks. That's a little less likely, obviously. So, first one is fairly likely though. So there's a chance we play the Rams. How do you feel about them? They have a similar quarterback situation right now with a talented quarterback like Dak, who is turning the ball over a little bit. But again, they still have some superstars there, and they still have some guys who would definitely make it tough on us. So how do you feel about playing McVay in the playoffs come round one and our chances against him and his squad?
I got you. So for one, I just want to say this isn't, which is a bit of a spoiler, but this isn't my preferred matchup for round one. It is the second most preferred matchup for me.
Yeah.
And for all the reasons I'm about to list, for one, Stafford has been a bum in the back half of this season. Oh my gosh. I've literally watched him turn into Kirk Cousins before my very eyes. the exact same, all the hope I had for him to like finally ball out in the preseason. I was like, yes, he finally escaped Detroit. Only to, I don't know what happened. The clock struck midnight. Like he got cursed, whatever happened. This man has fallen apart, man. Like what it's been, the questionable throws alone. Just, I don't know what to say about that. So that right there is a big incentive for me to want to draw the Rams. The reason they're not my favorite draw though is mostly McVay. I just trust McVay to somehow still scheme everyone out of that. And that defense, the Rams defense, man, I don't want to have to see Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey in the first round. That is a tall order. Von Miller's been coming alive recently. Like game-ending sack in this last game versus the Ravens. That's defense is a beast. And even on the offensive end, obviously, Cooper Kupp, being like freaking white Jerry Rice. And then on the other end, we got Odell, which has come alive too since he's been traded over there. So, game-winning touchdown last week, if I'm not mistaken. So,
yeah, and not with Baker anymore.
Point being, dude, the Rams team still has weapons. I'm still scared of them. Stafford is really the only thing that's even incentivizing me to like want to draw them in the first round because if he can give our defense a couple turnovers, like you said, that's huge. But like, the Rams, I'd be okay if we drew them. I'd rather not though.
Mm-hmm. I gotcha. Yeah, like you said, I mean, first off, McVay won a game last year with 9-finger Jared Goff. I mean, if that doesn't tell you what kind of coach, McVay really did scheme it up that game against Seattle.
Shout out to Sonny Michel also. I forgot to say that. He's come on strong in this back.
He has, and they're getting Cam Akers back. We'll see. He's going to play Sunday, which I think is good for him because meaningless game, he can kind of get his feet under him. So we'll kind of see what he looks like coming off the injury. Like you said, they have Kupp, they have Odell, and they have Van Jefferson too, who's a really good deep threat. And honestly, I think Van Jefferson could be a number 2 on a lot of other teams. So, and honestly, with Kupp too, I think Big Play Slice said in one of our recent lives, he will line up everywhere. He'll line up even in the backfield at times where they get him the ball. I know because he's on Sanjay's fantasy team, and I've been watching for those purposes at times. And when he goes out of the backfield, I'm like, well, that's a PPR point right there. So, and that's the thing. Like, you can't press him if he's in the backfield. So Big Play Slay is, I mean, obviously not the Big Play Slay commenting, the actual Big Play Slay. He'll probably follow him a good amount of the game, but then you still got to worry about Odell or Van Jefferson on, Steven Nelson and Avonte Maddox a good amount of the game, which I think both of those, I think I give advantage wide receiver there to both of those guys. As much as I love Maddox and I think he'll play well, like he's going to get beat a little bit in that matchup. I don't think he's going to get beat the whole time, but there will be times where he's going to get beat. So, but at the same time, like you said, Matt Stafford is giving away picks like Christmas gifts right now. Like he is just tossing them things out.
Stat pad for man.
Yeah, for real. And also, I don't think that defense is what they were with Brandon Staley calling the plays last year. I think they've taken a little bit of a step back. And honestly, Kelsey and those guys have done an okay job with Aaron Donald when we played them in the past. So I feel okay about that. And, you got to stay away from Jalen Ramsey. I know you're probably going to want to try to get Devontae Smith some looks. You can do that out a bunch every so often and try to scheme stuff up for him. But I wouldn't be testing Jalen Ramsey that whole game. Like Jalen's got to watch out for that. So we'll see. It'd be a good test for Smitty too, to go up against a guy like that. Smitty's also very rock solid up here. He's smart. He's not going to let Ramsey get in his head, which is what Ramsey's going to try to do. But it's still going to be a tough matchup. So I think there's definitely drawbacks. I honestly think Goddard could have a good game. They lost a couple safeties this past offseason in John Johnson and Troy Hill, a couple defensive backs. So I think Goddard could have a nice game against them too. So I do think this is my preferred matchup. I think we could have a good game against them and possibly pull off the upset, especially because I've said this a million times to sound like a broken record to Sanjay, but we sell out that stadium. Like our fans will be there. There's a lot of West Coast Eagles fans. Like we will be there, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's a sea of green and you hear a lot of boos when the Rams come on the field. So, and you saw it when we played the Chargers too, in that dinky little soccer stadium. We sold out that place. Like that was a home game. So, there's definitely a lot of pros and cons, as there are with the next team, which is the Bucks, who also is like Sanjay. We differ on these teams, but these are both my top 2 teams I would probably rather play than the other 2. But at the same time, I think we both believe we could beat any of these teams. So I think we're also going to have our hands full no matter who we play. There's positives and negatives, but looking at the Bucks, so let me pull up the scenario real quick. There's 3 scenarios we could play the Bucks in. So they're probably the most likely, and I honestly don't mind playing them round 1. So the first scenario is we lose to the Cowboys, the Bucks beat the Panthers, and the 49ers beat the Rams. Pretty likely. That could definitely happen. Second scenario, this one's really simple. Eagles beat the Cowboys, Rams beat the 49ers. So that one's pretty simple. So pretty clear cut and dry. The last one, Eagles beat Cowboys, Bucks beat the Panthers, and the 49ers Rams does not end in a tie. So yeah, honestly, there's 3 different scenarios, and these are all like the most likely I think that are going to happen. So I think we're going to play the Bucks, and we'll obviously go in depth when the time comes. If we, I'm cutting out right now. I think I'm back now, though.
You're back now. You're back now.
So I think one thing to mention is while we will travel no matter what in round 1. We're gonna have to go pretty far no matter who we play. But this team, we would go to Florida obviously versus going to Dallas, Arizona, or LA. That's a little bit of an easier trip, and you're also not dealing with the time change. So I think that's one thing to mention. And yeah, I mean, I just thought I would start off with that. I'll give my full explanation, but what do you think about playing this team with Tom Brady? They've obviously lost weapons there. They're a little banged up right now on both sides of the ball and not looking like the same team as last year. So what do you think about playing the defending Super Bowl champs in Tampa, and what kind of the pros and cons are of this matchup?
I got you, man. Let me start by saying this. The Bucks are my preferred matchup, and I got a few reasons for that. One, injuries have decimated their defense. Now, don't get me wrong. I know Brady obviously did enough in this last year's Super Bowl, but that defense was the backbreaker. That defense was how they won that last Super Bowl, man. They were insane getting after the quarterback, insane containing pretty much every play the Chiefs could throw at them. And this year, they've had so many injuries, bro. Their secondary riddled. They've had to get backups at almost every position. It got so bad they had to go and grab Richard Sherman at one point, like at his age now. And he's not terrible, but like, that just shows you how much of a downgrade they had to go to. Levante David being out, that's huge. You want to talk about a backbone of a defense? Levante David, one of the best linebackers in the game. His ability to do pretty much everything. Get after get into the backfield, get after the quarterback, play pass coverage. He's so fast. He can get those bigger tight ends, speedier wide receivers. He can do all of that. His loss is huge for that defense.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, I mean, Godwin, I believe, is Godwin out now? Is he out for the playoffs?
He's not for the year.
He's not for the year. Mike Evans was out for a bit, but I think he's back.
He is.
Right about that? He is back. And then obviously we know the one man himself, he left on his own terms. Or
we'll leave that to Rossi in case he wants to do a video on that.
We will leave that to Rossi. But point being, the Bucks are dealing with a lot right now, man, in terms of injuries, players not there right now, drama, which again, shout out to our boy Rossi. He's keeping y'all posted with that on the Philly Insider Instagram if you don't follow that.
Yeah.
But, dude, the Bucks just have a lot going against them right now. And I just feel like, again, the Super Bowl hangover is very real. I feel like they could definitely just get caught under the pressure. Now, Brady obviously is a big reason to be scared because that man is terrifying and he will haunt my nightmares until he retires. But I don't know, man. This just feels like one of those where we could just get them, where I just feel like people would come in overestimating the Bucks and underestimating us. And if I had to draw one matchup in the first round, and it seems like this will be the likely matchup, I'd take the Bucks, man, for all the reasons I just said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Look, I mean, they are very banged up. I think Levante David's a huge loss. And yeah, I mean, this is a team that has shown their I mean, they almost lost to the Jets this past week. Like, they are vulnerable and will play to their opponent's level from time to time. So they could definitely be a tough draw. The reasons I'm concerned, mostly because they still have their offensive line there. You still have Ryan Jensen. You still have Ali Marpet. You still have Tristan Wirfs. I think they still have all their starters, including Kappa and Donovan Smith. I just checked they do. That's a big concern. They still have their tight ends pretty much healthy, if I'm not mistaken. I think Brait is still healthy. I think Gronk is back. Yeah, they still have O.J. Howard in there. All of whom, I mean, you can still just go run. If they really wanted to, they could just go run heavy and try to – I mean, I know we have a good run defense, but if they go 13 personnel on us, that could definitely present some challenges, I think. especially Avery is. I mean, I think Avery's played well. He does well in like backside pursuit, but I could see him just getting bodied a little bit. But yeah, that's a concern. Yeah, the wide receiver position is definitely a concern. I mean, even though like I think Perryman and Scotty Miller are very good wideouts, that's a big help to us if you don't have, because Brown was the one who really torched us last time, and we were one Marcus Epps head turn away from maybe getting the ball back in that game. That was a big completion they had to seal the deal there, and if Epps hits the ball, then it's an incompletion and we don't have to waste time out and stuff. So that was a close play, very very close play, and I think we were very close to them the last time. The thing that scares me is just, like I said, the offensive line on the offense. They're still healthy. They can still do
Brady versus Gannon's defense.
Yeah.
That's the worst draw for Gannon's defense, if you ask me. I'll openly admit that.
Yeah.
Brady's the worst draw for Gannon's defense.
Yeah, if we do play the Bucs, I'd rather die being aggressive than die sitting back in cover 4 the whole game. Like I don't want to just let Brady. It doesn't matter what receivers are out there. He's going to pick you apart if you just let him. If you just play soft zone. And credit to Gannon, in the second half of that Bucs game, he got a lot of stops, which I think will be overlooked because we lost that game 28-22. But he got a lot of stops that almost let us come back in that game. Like that game ended up being a close match at the end. So I think we've improved a lot since then. But at the end of the day, I think it comes down to, can you keep the ball out of Brady's hands in the last 2 minutes? Because, look, no matter how the game goes, Brady is not going to he's going to, whether if he struggles in the game, he's going to be down or up by enough in that last minute that he can seal the game. If he does well in the game, it's going to be, a touchdown with either way. It's going to be a one-score game. If it's a close game, it's going to be enough to where Brady can get the ball back and either seal the deal or go on that game-winning drive. We just saw him do it with no time left in the game against the Jets. So that's what worries me, is that you also have to worry about that. And making sure you manage the clock very well, because the game could be great and then you can come to the last 2 minutes and be, well, Brady's going to go down and win the game right now. He has too much time. So that's what I worry about. But again, he did turn the ball over in the 2-minute drill against the Saints this year. And if we can dial up some stuff that the Saints did, maybe take a page out of their playbook, maybe you come out on top. But on the defensive side of the ball, they do have Devin White. They still have Antoine Winfield there. And
I don't know about that. I think I heard that he's out actually.
For this week or for the playoffs?
For the playoffs. I'm not sure. But
really?
I'll double check that right now. But I remember when you said his name, I forgot about it when I was speaking. But I think I vaguely remember hearing a rumor he might be out.
Yeah, I think he is hurt. Yeah, check that while I'm going here and let us know. Mm-hmm. But they still do have, I believe they have Shaq Barrett still too. I believe he's still healthy, which is a big part of that Bucs defense. So they still got some pieces there, but honestly, I think we could move the ball in their defense. Like their secondary outside of Winfield is pretty bad, and especially if he's out, that's going to be a tough draw for them. So I think Smitty would have a big game. I think Quez would have a big game, honestly, versus that defense. So yeah, I think the Bucs could be a decent draw, but them and the Rams are definitely my top 2 matchups that I think we're looking at. So, yeah. Did you find out? Or
I did find something. So he's not playing in this upcoming week because of a foot injury he had in week 14. So if he does come back, he's hobbled.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we will see. Having him out there, I think, will be big for communication alone. But we'll see. I think our wideouts could definitely tear apart that back end of the secondary. I think their secondary is very weak. So. I do want to, before we wrap up, that went long. I mean, we filled a lot of the time, more than I thought we would. So props to us. But I do want to get to this question. So Joey Shake's popular Eagles content creator. I think this has been something that's been talked about a lot, is Howie Roseman and the stretch he's had. Look, I think this is something we got to discuss a little bit, because a big thing from the last time when Doug was here, Doug didn't have say in the personnel at all, which tells me Howie probably isn't the best at player evaluation. But I think, and I don't know this for sure, but I think this coaching staff does have some influence upon, the draft and when that comes around. I think they do have some say, which could be big for, Howie staying here, because if Howie's not the primary, I think he still has final say in who we draft for sure. But if he is more so if we can focus on him more in terms of contract negotiations, trade negotiations, salary caps. Look, people can talk about the salary cap stuff. You can move salary cap. Salary cap is not a big deal to me because you can just move money from year to year to year to year. Time never ends. You can move, you can play around the salary cap as much as you want, and Howie knows how to do that. And also, he knows how to stockpile draft picks. Now, I think we'll learn a lot more this year in the draft, but I also think, look, obviously we're in a good mood right now. The Eagles are in the playoffs. They've had a really good season. So I'm sure we'll have a point where we get mad at Howie again. But I do want to give him and Lurie some credit that I think they deserve because this team doesn't stay down like an organization like the Jets. Or like, I'm trying to think of I think the Lions will come out of it. I think they're nearing that. But like the Lions, like we're not an organization that when we have a bad year, they're not going to let the city stay down. And will they get us another Super Bowl? The Jags, exactly. Will this front office get us another Super Bowl? I can't say that, and I'm not sure I'm confident in that. But being competitive, isn't that the goal every year? To be in the mix and in the dance? So we'll see how this team progresses, how this coaching staff progresses. There's a lot to be figured out next year, right? And I honestly, there was a big mess that Howie created that he didn't need to create, before all this started. So a lot of last year was his fault, but I think they do deserve credit. They've made the playoffs, 4 out of the last 5 years. I do want to give them their credit for putting a competitive team on the field, but I think there's a lot still to be figured out. But for now, keyword being for now, I do agree with Joey Shakes. Credit to them, and I think I think even before this year, we all knew Howie was probably going to be back because he's been here forever, and Lurie loves him. So word on the street is that Lurie does like Jalen Hurts a lot too, so he'll probably be back. But we'll find out a lot next year. But I do want to give him a lot of credit. So I wanted to touch on that before we wrap up.
Yeah, it's with Howie, it's going to be love-hate. Yeah. I recognize as much as I hate on him, and I do, he has his merits, I will begrudgingly admit. So it's always going to be love-hate. I'll be honest, in my case, it's probably more hate. But that doesn't mean I can't recognize his talents. He does have talents, especially when it comes to contract and like salary cap negotiation, like you said, Hunter. But I don't know, man. I can't bring myself to say that I like Howie as our GM still. But, better the devil I guess, as they say. Like, you don't want to end up in a situation where you get someone who's just absolutely incompetent on every end. Yeah. That would be truly tragic. And we've seen some teams fall for that. Just because what you have isn't the best doesn't mean you get rid of it if you don't have anything better. Because if so, you might end up with something worse.
Yeah. Hey, see the Giants. Look, cool. The Giants beat us twice in the last 2 years. Okay, you guys can have that. You guys have not been competitive. You haven't. Your team has been awful every single year. I will take losing to you guys twice in the past 2 years if it means that we've owned you the other years and we've been in the mix for the playoffs almost every single year. So I want to put that. Also, I wanted to shout out this too. Shout out Joe Judge. And I know he's not in control of the roster. For us disrespecting the game with Nate Sudfeld being out there, when you start Jake Fromm and Mike Glennon for the rest of the season after Daniel Jones comes out, that is disrespecting the game. That is an embarrassment to the game. So don't come at us telling us about how Nate Sudfeld. Also, that's disrespectful to Nate Sudfeld too, because look, I know the dude's not a good player, but that dude is still in the locker room, on the practice field, working for 17 weeks, and he got his shot in that last game. Does he not deserve that in a meaningless game? And then a year later, you're out here and your team puts up -10 passing yards. So I wanted to finish on that note. Screw you, Joe Judge. Your team is a joke right now. Your organization's a joke. And I'm sure I'll regret saying that at some point. But I wanted to get that out of my system because they deserve it. So I don't know if you had anything to say on that. But
Mike Glennon, next supremacy. Shout out to you, John. But no, that's all I got, man. This has been a good live. We covered a lot of ground.
We did. We covered a lot more considering most of these Thursday lives, we kind of just freestyle and talk about whatever. So, yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Grandizer. And yeah, honestly, exactly. They go in that list, which was kind of my point. So, but yeah, that's all I wanted to cover, really. Anything you want to say before we sign off, Sanjay?
No, as always, go check out Bird Gang Nation. Check out our channel. We got a lot of stuff coming for you guys.
Yeah.
I realized about an hour ago that the North and South Division sentence summaries for this week just didn't go up for some reason. And once again, I have no idea where they went. So I'll be re-recording those and posting them later tonight. But aside from that, we're almost to playoff football, ladies and gentlemen. I'm excited.
We are. Yeah, we are. Guys, make sure you go check out the sentence summaries. Sanjay puts in a lot more work than the 60 seconds will show. So you guys are going to want to go check those out. I enjoy them. It's a quick little write-up on the team. And yeah, and even if I can't stay up to date, Sanjay keeps me up to date. So make sure you guys go check those out. And yeah, with that said, thank you for all the support lately on the channel. Run, Boston, run. Fly, Eagles, fly. And we will see y'all later. Peace.